Good day, sir. Good day, everyone. I am Lucilo T. Langita Jr. and we are the Group 5. Our topics about Lesson 15 and Lesson 16. Lesson 15 is about gender-based violence, survivor, victim, perpetrator, and human rights. And Lesson 16 is about power, use of force, and consent. Introduction. Gender-based violence is one of the most widespread and human rights abuses, but least recognized in the world. It refers to any harm perpetrated against a person's will in the basis of gender, the socially ascribed differences between males and females. Gender-based violence has devastating consequences not only for victims but also for society as a whole. It results in physical, sexual, and psychological harm to both men and women and includes any form of violence or abuses that targets men and women on the basis of their sex. In the Philippines, gender-based violence has clearly been placed in the realm of women's human rights over the past decade. Prior to 1993, most governments regarded violence against women largely as a private matter between individuals. Gender-based violence experienced by women and girls refers to the battering and other forms of intimate partner violence, including marital rape, sexual violence, dowry-related violence, and female infanticide, sexual abuse of female children in the household, honor crimes, early marriage, forced marriage, female genital cutting, and other traditional practices harmful to women, sexual harassment in the workplace and educational institutions, commercial sexual exploitations, trafficking of girls and women, and violence perpetrated against domestic workers. Gender-based violence cuts across public and private spheres, including home, school, and work, and takes place during peacetime and conflict. It is both a human rights and development issue with negative consequences for both men and women. Consequences of gender-based violence. These consequences include serious, immediate, and long-term impacts on the sexual, physical, and psychological health of survivors. Health consequences include unwanted pregnancies, complications from unsafe abortion, sexually transmitted infections including HIV, injuries, mental health, and psychological effects like depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, suicide, and death. Violence also affects children's survival, development, and school participation. Social consequences extend to families and communities. Families can also be stigmatized as a consequences of gender-based violence. For example, when children are born following a rape, or if family members choose to stand by a survivor, fellow members of their community may avoid them. Economic consequences include the cost of public health and social welfare systems and the reduced ability of many survivors to participate in social and economic life. Survivor, victim, and perpetrator. Survivor is the preferred term of a person who has lived through an incident of gender-based violence. A perpetrator is a person, group, or institution that inflicts support and condones violence or other abuse against a person or group of persons. Characteristics of perpetrator include A. Persons with real or perceived power. B. Persons in decision-making position. C. Persons in authority. In all incidents of GBV, there is always a survivor or victim and a perpetrator. Therefore, all actions in the prevention and responses to GBV needs to discuss both the survivor and the perpetrator. Human rights. Human rights are universal, inalienable, indivisible, interconnected, and interdependent. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms without distinctions of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, and political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Prevention of and response to gender-based violence is directly linked to the protection of human rights. Acts of gender-based violence violate A number of human rights principles enshrined in international human rights instruments and in our Philippines Constitution. This includes the following amongst others: the right to life, liberty, and property of persons, the right to the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health, the right to freedom from torture or cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment, the right to freedom of opinion and expression, and to education. Summary: GBV is a worldwide phenomenon which must be given attention nationally and internationally. The consequences capture almost all spheres of our lives, like family, socially, economically, and health. A main focus of gender-based violence is violence against women, or VAW, affecting women and girls across their lifespan. VAW also covers a continuum of violence which appeared to be unending with an array of elements of abuse, coercion, or force. The survivors and perpetrator are important actors in GBV and VAW cases. GBV and VAW are clear violations of human rights. All this points to the essence that these acts of violence are a global and national concern.
Lesson 16: Gender-based violence, power, use of force, and consent. Introduction. In earlier session, we have discussed what GBV and the against subjects who are involved in it, the survivor and the perpetrators among others. These sessions explore the meaning of three important concepts behind GBV: power, use of force, violence, and informed consent.
Power. Preparators can have real or perceived power. Some examples of different types, power and powerful people are the following. First, social peer pressure bullying, leaders and teachers, parents. Second, economic preparators controls money or access to goods, service, money, favors, sometimes the husband or the father. Third, political elected leaders, discriminatory laws, President of the United States. Fourth, physical strength, size of weapons, controlling access or security, soldier, police, robbery, gangs. Fifth, gender-based social, males are usually in more powerful position than females. And lastly, age-related often the young and the older people have the less power. Power directly related to choose. The more power one has, there are more choices available. The less power has, fewer choices are available. Unempowered people have fewer choices, are therefore more vulnerable to abuse. So means abuse. GBV, gender-based violence, involves the abuse of power, unique unique power relationship or exploit or abuse. Use of force violence. Force might be physical, emotional, social, or economic in nature. It may also involve coercions or pressure. Force also includes intimidation, threats, persecutions, or other forms of psychological or social pressure. The target of such violence is completed to behave as expected or to do what being requested for fear or real and harmful consequences. Violence consists of the use physical force of other means of assertion, such as traits in documents or promise of the benefits to obtain sometimes from weaker or more vulnerable person. Using violence involves forcing someone to do something against her his will of force.
And lastly, informed consent. Consent means saying yes, agreeing to something. Informed consent means making an informed choice freely and voluntarily by persons in an equal power relationship. For example, parents consent. Kailangan pa i-inform yung parents para ma-approve nila na kailangan ka musod ng butanga. If dili sila musugot na musod ka ng butanga, maong dili gyud po mao na ang informed consent. Cycle of violence. The cycle of violence refers to repeated acts of violence in a relationship. It starts with a minor incidents and moves to more serious levels of violence. The cycle of violence may start in a child who is a victim or witness to violence and may be repeated when the child becomes an adult. Children should understand that having conflict is alright, but resolving conflict through violence is not right. For example, nato sa senaryo sa usa ka pamilya nya gubot kay lang sitwasyon, gamay nga away nagkadako na napadapatay nya ang mawitness na ang bata nya ang bata medyo na trauma nya nistugan sa tinuod nya muna gibuhat sa iyang pamilya nya kaya dili siya gusto na magbalik-balik ang sitwasyon sa iyang pamilya na gubot. Mao na ang cycle of violence. Summary: power and abuse of the same are integral components of GBV. These components also bad and effect so the consent to be given by the survivor. Consent may be informed or negotiated on which violence is perpetrated. This violence placed along a cycle of being overpowered and giving to consent to the detriment of women and their children.